Say, Jeff,
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure my audio was working.
Yep, it's working just fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Can you hear me fine? Dennis Hogeveen?
Yep, can hear you too, Dennis. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. We are the Owatonna School Board. This is Monday. It's the 23rd of November. It's 5:30. I'm going to call this meeting to order. And as we have done in the past with our virtual meetings, everything will be done with a roll call vote. I'll ask Eric to conduct the roll call vote for the attendance.
Okay, Mark,
Here.
Jolene,
Here.
Christina,
Here.
Tim,
Here.
Nikki,
Here.
and I myself is here. All present. Oh, wait, it's Daniela?
Don't see her yet.
Don't see her. We're all present currently from the board except for the student rep.
Very good. Thank you. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, and with the help of Mr. Elstad, who will turn his computer so we can have the benefit of a flag. There it is. Would you all please rise and join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First up tonight would be to approve the agenda as it has been presented to you. We'll entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this? Okay, hearing none. Eric?
Yep, Mark.
Aye.
Excuse me, Mark.
Yep.
I can't hear you.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay, I'm gonna, as soon as I turn it over to Eric, I'll mute myself. Maybe that'll help.
No, I can hear you plain stay through this.
Okay.
Can you hear me, Lori? It's her.
Lori, can you hear any of us?
Sorry.
Eric, I'll have you hang on for just 1 second. It looked like she was going to sign out and maybe she's going to try and sign back in again. There she is. Eric, or Lori, can you hear us now?
I can't hear you. What's going
She can't.
on? Jeff, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yep. Can you hear me, Lori? It's all on her end. She might not have her speaker turned up.
Okay, Lori, try it one more time. Can you hear us?
Yes, I did.
She doesn't, Lori, you don't appear to be muted, but we still can't hear you.
Try that.
Now we can hear you. Now we can't.
No, you can't?
Now
Now
you're
we
coming
can.
through. Okay, we'll continue
I
on. Eric
apologize.
will continue on with the, to approve the motion of the approval of the agenda.
Okay, Mark,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Jolene,
Aye. Sorry.
Christina,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Nikki,
Aye.
and I myself is an aye. 7-0 pass.
Motion carries. Thank you. Item 4 tonight on the agenda is the mission moment. I'll turn things over to the superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm going to be sharing my screen here momentarily. And within that, I am going to share with you a slide that represents our mission moment for the month of November. And I believe everyone should be able to see this slide up right now. Our mission moment for November is dwelling in the area of our safe and caring community. And this month, we are calling out Nikki Melgard, who's an art instructor at Owatonna Middle School, and her Husky Connections class. This is actually came to us from last year. But last year, her Husky Connections decided to raise funds for Team Trees, which is a nonprofit that is part of the Arbor Day Foundation. Her Husky Connections class made acrylic pour magnets and sold them at lunches. The money raised was donated to Team Trees, and they were able to purchase 400 trees to be planted as a result. This fall, Team Trees chose Nikki and her kids' project to be a feature story in their K-12 newsletter. A quote from Nikki Melgard: "Each year I try to create at least one community action project with my students to try and teach civic responsibility and to make the world a better place. Last year I ran across your Team Trees project and felt it was a perfect fit for my kids." Her students created eye-catching acrylic pour magnets and sold them for $2 each, with each magnet planting a tree for Team Trees. In the end, as I mentioned, they were able to plant 400 trees. Thank you to Nikki Melgard, and thank you to our students at Owatonna Middle School and our Huskies Connection for making a difference and for planting trees that provide valuable oxygen for us as we move forward. And what a great way for them to demonstrate that they are caring about their environmental community as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elstad, and thank you to Ms. Melgard for that. That's a great story. We will move on. Item 5 tonight is public forum. I'm going to look to my right. I'm going to look for Sarah to indicate if we had anything submitted. Nothing submitted for public forum tonight, so we're going to continue to move on. We have a couple of reports tonight. First item would be the audit, and I'm going to ask Mr. Elstad to do some introductions of our staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. This is our annual audit that's coming tonight, and we have some great news to share in regard to our audit, and I'm not going to steal any thunder at this point. I would like to turn it over to our Director of Finance and Operations, Amanda Hellman. Amanda.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us here tonight. Tonight we have Dennis Hugavine from Clifton Larson Allen, who is from our independent audit firm. And he is going to present our executive audit summary to you tonight. So I am going to share my screen here and then let him take it.
Thank you, Amanda. There we go.
There we go.
Amanda has graciously accepted the offer to be my driver of the PowerPoint tonight. We met a week ago with the Finance Committee and kind of fine-tuned the PowerPoint a little bit. So we appreciate their input. We went over it in a longer format than what we're going to be able to spend on it tonight. But we do appreciate the time that we were able to spend a week ago. We also want to thank the finance team and all the hard work that they put into the audit process. Sarah Cramblett is our lead contact with the audit, and certainly Amanda gets involved as well. But we could not do our audit work without their excellent work and all of the you'd be amazed at all the different people that get involved in the audit process, but they really have developed a great working relationship with the audit team and really appreciate all their excellent work and their excellent effort. So the PowerPoint tonight is really just extraction of different elements of the executive audit summary. And I don't know if that's yet been posted on the district's website or not, but it's intended as a complement to the CAFR, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. The district has put together a CAFR, Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, as I say, for a number of years, and it really is holding itself out to a higher standard than it's certainly required to. It's submitted to the ASBO Certificate of Excellence program every year to, again, tell the community that you're holding yourself out to a higher standard than you otherwise would have to. It's just jam-packed full of excellent historical financial data and things like that bond rating agencies are interested in, and different elements that in terms of helps in terms of the competitive rates on bonds and things like that. Obviously, with all the different things you've been doing with building construction and whatnot, it really does make a difference in terms of being competitive and getting excellent rates and things like that. So it does make a huge difference. And it's one of the more comprehensive CAFRs that you'd ever find if you compared one district to the next. So it's really a feather in the cap of the district in terms of the amount of effort that goes into that. So anyway, here's the single page that kind of summarizes all the different things that you're hiring an auditing firm to do for the district in terms of all the different ways that we're required to give opinions and potential findings and things like that. So we'll kind of cover these kind of quickly, but the main thing that you're hiring an auditing firm to do is to give an audit opinion on the financial statements themselves. And here, as it says, we've issued what's known as a clean or an unmodified audit report. It's as good of an audit opinion as we're able to give any Minnesota school district. And then because we're following governmental auditing standards, we have to issue what's called the Yellow Book compliance opinion. And for 2020, we had no compliance issues to report under the compliance opinion aspect of that particular opinion. And then there's a internal control aspect of that opinion. But we had no material weaknesses in internal controls to report under the internal control aspect of that letter. And then because you expended more than $750,000 of federal funding, you had what's called the single audit. And this year we audited the Title I program and the child nutrition cluster. And for this particular year, there were no findings to report. Last year, we had 3 significant deficiencies to report. I think 2 of those related to the child nutrition cluster last year, and 1 significant deficiency related to special ed. But this year, to have no findings was a very significant outcome this year. And so the business office was very, very, very pleased with that outcome, because those results do not just happen. They take it very seriously, and it was very exciting for them to have that outcome. So the board wanted us to make a point to emphasize that there were no findings this year for the single audit, because that was hard fought on their part to make sure that that outcome was achieved. So that's very important to them. And then we also do a Minnesota legal compliance audit, where we use the guidance put together by the Office of the State Auditor to test the compliance of the district with a number of different state statutes. It's actually quite common to have some sort of legal compliance exception. You can imagine when we're testing the district's compliance with the prompt payment of bills, for example, that's the most common legal compliance exception You can imagine how many bills can accidentally get misplaced on an administrator's desk somewhere. So it's not that uncommon to have a legal compliance exception, but we had nothing to report for 2020. So you can imagine how exciting to get a full page summary of all the different ways you could have a finding, and to get an absolutely clean sweep like this. I can't promise that that'll happen every year, but this was one of those years when it's an absolute clean sweep. Boring for me, but very exciting for the district. It was a very, very clean sweep in terms of audit opinions and findings this year. Nothing to report. In terms of the financial outcomes for the year, also a very good year, even though the graphs look a little bit odd, perhaps to the untrained eye. What I see, though, are outcomes that were very much in keeping with what the intent of the school board was, which is what you'd want. So over the 5-year trends of the fund balance of the general fund, you can see that the unassigned fund balance was virtually unchanged from 2019 to 2020. 2020 ending fund balance unassigned category, which is, programmatically what the board has available to it to decide, what to do programmatically with the unassigned portion of fund balance. So for it to be unchanged is, pretty much consistent with what they had expected, or to have about 5 weeks of average expenditures available to it. So the ending fund balance in total was about 15.91%. The ending unassigned fund balance was about 9.46%, which is very, very similar to the ending prior year fund balance of 9.69%. The drop from 2018 to 2019 was very much in keeping with what the board's intent was. They made a decision to have a district policy where the minimum fund balance was to be between 8% and 10% of general fund expenditures, the general fund expenditure budget. So that was very much an intentional thing on the board's part, and they've been very consistent about keeping it in that range. In terms of the enrollment over the past 5 years, you can see from this graph, enrollment dropped slightly from 2019 to 2020, a net loss of about 55.6 ADMs. The total resident ADMs increased by about 10, but the net loss was about 55.6. One of the things we talked about last week was where for some districts that was much more significant in terms of the post-COVID response, in terms of the distance learning and what happened with enrollment and things like that. So that was not as significant as what some other districts had as far as a response to the distance learning. So in terms of the next slide, the general fund revenue sources over the past 5 years, there's a really good explanation of this. I wanted to get a plug-in for the MD&A from the front of the CAFR section for people to read that. On page 27, the district business office writes a really good summary in the management's discussion and analysis section of why the revenues increased from 2019 to 2020. This is also the second year of the legislature not having any impact of tax shifts or age shifts and things like that. So if I had been a betting man last year, I would have said that highly unlikely that the legislature would have to balance the state's budget by coming up with mechanisms such as a tax shift or age shifts and things like that. But now in a post-COVID-19 environment, I'm not so sure about that, because of the state's budget and having to plug a significant budget deficit. They may have to use mechanisms like that. So I don't know that that'll be true going into the 2021 budget or legislative session. I don't know what they're going to have to do, but this was the second 5-year period when this was an unadulterated summary of revenue sources that didn't have those kind of mechanisms. So it'll be interesting to see what how they plug that budget hole. In terms of expenditures per ADM, we did have a little bit of a discussion last week. Going from looking at 2019 to 2020, the district really, you know, it's not a natural progression from 2019 to 20. It really does reflect the fact that the district has really managed the natural progression of costs by showing cost containments here. You can see it doesn't have the natural progression that you would normally see there with you know, just normal inflationary increases that would normally take it off to the right a little bit more like that. This is just showing a real cost containment measures being implemented here to keep costs in line with change in enrollment and things like that. So it just kind of jumps out at you when you look at the expenditures expressed this way as cost per student basis. And this is another way of looking at breaking down the total expenditures by object dimension. You can see that the costs that were incurred, the additional costs from one year to the next, were salaries and benefits. And it really kind of jumps out at you here. And you'd expect that. So if you're going to spend additional dollars from one year to the next, it's pretty much built into the contracts and things like that, which is probably to be expected. In terms of the food service fund, and we talked about this last week, but you know, once we got to the distance learning that had to be implemented around the middle of March, there were no additional a la carte sales, of course, and then the free meals. So that really brought down the revenue. There had a significant impact on revenues, and of course, one of the things we really talked about is, and it was more anecdotal because I get to see a lot of different school districts, and one of the things we commented on was the fact that what really separated one district from the next in terms of the bottom line impact on fund balance was the districts that really had strong programs that reacted relatively quickly to the instance of the distance learning and the impact of COVID-19, were the ones that reacted very quickly, had relatively minor impacts on those the COVID-19, the instance of the drop in the revenue and the cost impacts, and Owatonna falls into that category. They had a relatively strong and quick response to that, so the impact on their ending fund balance was not as severe as what we were seeing in some other school districts. And you only saw that in districts that had strong reaction to that and quick reactions to that, so the impact was not as severe as it might have otherwise been. In terms of the meals served, you could really see the significant drop in meals, but the relative impact in terms of the types of meals really wasn't. I guess it's not that surprising that the types of meals wasn't that significantly impacted, but because it was a relatively short period of time. But it'll be more interested if it's a longer period of time in fiscal 2021, I should say. In terms of the community service fund, again, I think the other thing that surprised us that was and shouldn't have been as surprising as it turned out to be, but the school districts that had strong community service programming and had this types of services that people need to become really reliant on in terms of this school age care programming and things like that, really successfully rose to the challenge and really came out of it on the other end much stronger than what we anticipated. We thought there'd be much more severe impacts to the community service programming. But what we found were the districts that really had strong programs going into the COVID-19 situations came out on the other end because they already had strong programming that people needed to rely on. And that really showed in Owatonna, as you can see here, that they really came out on the other end by having the type of programming that really people came to depend on. And it really showed in terms of the actual ending results. In terms of expenditures per ADM comparison, we started, I think, showing this, really started showing it last year. And one of the reasons that we started showing this more visually, we've always been showing profiles data, and particularly for Owatonna. I had to shut something down that was blocking my screen. One of the reasons we started showing this more visually is just because otherwise it got to be showing a lot of numbers. But one of the reasons we started showing it in this format is because For schools such as Owatonna that had less resources available, we needed a way to show it more visually so that you could show that for a school district that has less resources available, we needed a way to show visually that for those that had less dollars available, we needed to show visually that you were investing it in places where it's more closely aligned with regular instruction, for example, more directly aligned with the classroom than in administration, frankly, as an example. So you're expending less in district and school administration and more into the classroom. Even though you have less available to spend, you're putting more directly into the classroom. So that was the intent of showing that more visually. So even though it gets a little bit more, for my type of brain, it might be a little bit more difficult or challenging to interpret. That was the intent behind it. So that was a quick run through the highlight of the executive audit summary, but we do sincerely appreciate the opportunity to serve the district. And to the extent people do have questions, Amanda or Sarah certainly know how to reach me, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or take any feedback along as far as how we can improve information and take that under advisement. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions if there is any for me.
Yes, there. Thank you very much. Let's open it up. Board members, any questions for Amanda? Dennis, anybody? I do not see any. Amanda, how many times in the history that you have been here have you had an audit come back that clean?
This is the first year that we've had a clean sweep with no findings. So this is excellent news and just super proud of our team. So
Congratulations on behalf of the board. We couldn't be more proud. That's a real milestone. Thank you. I'll look around one more time to see if there are any questions, comments. Hearing none. Again, thank you. Thank you both very much. I'm going to turn things back over to Mr. Elstad one more time. I'm going to come right back to you, Amanda. Item B will be the fall enrollment update.
Thank you, Dennis, for being part of our meeting. I see you just left our meeting with. He's very easy to work with, and Amanda and her team certainly have found that firm to be a great firm that helps.
How come I'm not getting it?
are you guys there? I must have lost my sound.
We are.
Okay.
That would have been the error became between the chair and the keyboard there. So I had forgot to unmute myself. I apologize. Thank you to Dennis for providing his partnership for the audit. And I'm really proud of our team in the finance and business office to that's quite a feat. So I will turn things back over to Amanda to present the fall enrollment report.
All right, I'm going to share my screen again here. All right. Is everyone seeing their enrollment report? Okay, good. All right, so tonight we wanted to walk through our enrollment report and show you kind of where we're at as of October 1. So I'm going to go through where our current enrollment is and class sizes for each grade level. Look at a little bit about where we're at for open enrollment, and then look forward to the next 5 years as far as what we're seeing for anticipated targets for the next 5 years. So as you can see here, our elementary K-5 enrollment as of October 1, I'm pleased to say that we still continue to have no hotspots K-5 as we're taking a look at our class sizes and our populations per school. And with the pandemic added in here, we had another layer of, looking at those balanced class sizes as we tried to plan for the fall, because as we had students doing distance learning and we had students that were in person in our elementary, we had to really make sure that we were balancing our class sizes to make sure that if we had to move to the hybrid model at any point in time during the fall, that we were able to have balanced class sizes that met capacity levels for that hybrid model. So not only were we looking this fall to make sure we were meeting those capacity levels for hybrid model, but we're looking at it from a holistic perspective as a school district as well to make sure we're maintaining those average class sizes like we want to, so that when we're able to bring all kids back in person, we have those balanced class sizes and balanced populations at all of our sites. So we continue to see that happening, continue to be using our neighborhood boundaries as we have been, and we continue to see those results happening where we have those balanced class sizes as we move forward. Here we can just see our elementary capacity levels, as I said, spread out very consistently throughout the district. Really no changes from year to year. I mean, as you can see, the percentage of the bottom percentage of district, McKinley being our largest site, obviously has a little bit more of the percentage of the district, but really balanced overall throughout the district. As we take a look at our total students and the populations of students that we have at each of our sites, you can see as a K-5 level, the percentages of students. So overall, 19.1% of our students K-5 are receiving special education services. Around 10.7% of our students are receiving EL or English learner services. And then around 42.1% of our K-5 students qualify for free and reduced lunches. And as you can see, when you're taking a look at each of those sites, Wilson and McKinley are our highest populations of students for free and reduced at each of those sites as we're taking a look at the demographics per site. As far as the middle school goes, when we take a look at all of our departments, all of the enrollments, all of the sections that we have, we can see that our average class size for the middle school is falling around our target of between 28 and 30. We're at 29.5 average class size. If we take out music, we're at 29.2 per class. Our average class size. So we're right in target with where we want to be with the middle school as well. When we take a look at the same thing with the high school, we can see that our enrollment is here with our sections. And as you can see, we are a little bit below actually where we target for the 28 to 30. We're at around 23.7 average class size for the high school. Without music, we're around 23 there. And as we take a look at open enrollment this year, as you can see, the last few years we've been between 40 and 50 open enrollment going out of the district as a net loss. And we did gain a little bit back this year. As you can see in 2021, right now we're sitting at a negative 20. However, when we take a look to see what's going on with the non-public realm, we can see that everything remained very consistent from year to year, with the exception of the homeschool. So as we went into this distance learning, we went into the fall with hybrid learning, with our all in-person model that we started with the safe learning plan. You can see that some families decided to actually move to homeschooling versus doing the distance learning model within our school district. So we did see a big jump there. However, as we take a look as to where we were projecting when we started this fall, we're really only behind about, we're 50 students lower than what we had anticipated when we projected for our preliminary budget, which is significantly better than some of our Big Nine colleagues in the Big Nine, as they're seeing, some of them are seeing between 150 to 300 students lower than they were anticipating. So with 50 students being lower, even though that sounds like a large number, we are, maintaining we're still able to be projecting that. And we do anticipate that a majority of these students that left because of the distance learning model, because of the pandemic happening, will be coming back in. So as we take a look at what we project forward for the next 5 years, we're including those students, projecting that those students come back in. So as you can see here, our average daily membership as we progress out for the next 5 years, we can see we're going to remain pretty relatively flat with a little bit of declining enrollment, and I'll elaborate on that here in a second as to why we see a slight decline as we move out to the next 5 years. As you can see, we do have some larger class sizes that are moving through the high school right now. So the black bars on this graph are really just showing what our senior classes are that are going to be graduating for each of the next 5 years. And then we know birth rates have been declining in our county. So we know that we're going to see smaller kindergarten class sizes. And so as those large senior classes graduate, we see smaller kindergarten classes coming in. And so that's where we're seeing that slight decline in enrollment as we project out through the next 5 years. And this is just a graph showing each different grade level as to what we're anticipating for the end of the year average daily membership for each grade level for this school year. And as I mentioned earlier, those kindergarten enrollments that we're talking about, when we're projecting what we are actually going to have coming through our doors, we're using a 70.4% migration rate, which essentially means we're assuming that 70.4% of the child that are birthing at our hospital here are going to come through our doors when they're 5 and enter our kindergarten classroom. So right now that's the percentage that we're using, and here are the numbers that we can expect for the next 5 years as we progress through that. So really overall, even though we've seen a drop or a rise in those homeschool students, we're really only 50 students lower than what we were anticipated. So all in all, pretty close to what our enrollment projections were, even with the pandemic rolling forward on us and really not knowing how that was going to impact us. So with that, I think I'll turn it over for any questions that anyone has.
Amanda, could you do me a favor? Can you go back 2 slides? Can you put
Whoops, sorry, I'll share
your
it.
presentation back up there? And can you go back 2 slides where it gave us some class by class sense of what your student population was by class? There
Yep.
you go, right there. That's a good spot to land on. Thank you.
Yep.
And let's open it up. Board members, questions for Amanda on this report? Thanks, Amanda. If you can.
Yep, I didn't know if you
There
wanted me to leave that up. Okay.
There we go.
Amanda, maybe you can just expand just a little bit. So I was thinking to that slide that you showed with kind of the net migration out of our district, the number of students we've lost. But as I looked at that just quickly as you were moving through, so last year we had 94 that went to homeschool, it looked like,
Mhm.
and this year we have 173. So if we just quickly do the math, so we got what, 80 kids?
Mhm.
But we only had a net loss of 50, which tells me,
So on the open enrollment piece, so that's the trade-off. So open enrollment, we're usually running around a -50. Right now, we're running around a -20. So when we offset those two components, that's where we're getting to that 50 that we were off from a projection standpoint.
okay. Anyway, it didn't look as nearly as bad as I thought or feared it might.
Yes.
And then one more quick question, as long as I kind of have the floor. Can you comment on the migration rate, that 70.4? I think we've used that consistently, haven't we? And can you just refresh my memory? Kind of where does that come from, or how do you know what number to use?
Yeah, so the 70.4% we're using comes from the demographic study we did in 2018 with Hazel Reinhardt. But we also track internally in our office all the births that are happening at the hospital each year and just double check that with the percentage we're using to make sure that it's close. And every year it's been very close to what Hazel had projected for us. So that's why we continue to use her model. Yep.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you showed the free and reduced lunch percentage.
Yep.
Have you seen that decrease because families are not completing the forms now that they're virtual?
Excellent question. Yes, actually, we have been doing a lot of outreach. This here again is we're not as bad as some of our big 9 counterparts as far as what has been left out there. Right now, we're sitting with about 150 students that qualified for free and reduced benefits last year that have not reapplied. And so we've been doing a lot of outreach to families to try to get them to understand that this isn't just about, free meals. It's about funding that comes to the schools. To help support social workers, to help support those extra needed, reading, math, interventions that we're doing within our school. So it's very important for families to know that it's not just about free meals. There is a funding component attached with it. So I am working with our nutrition services department. We're going to put a little flyer together. And so we have really essentially until January 7th, I think is our last MARS submission for our counts that would count for free and reduced. So we're really going to make a big push, and we've been making a big push this fall to get families to reapply. But it is going to be an issue, and it is going to be something we're going to need to approach our legislators about, because every school is in the same boat that we're in right now, where we're seeing significant decreases. And we really want to hold harmless there so that we're not being impacted because of the pandemic and things that are happening within people's lives right now.
If I might interject here, as Amanda alluded to, we've been in contact with our legislators to walk them through a couple of different aspects that are part of the impact of our enrollment report and what we are seeing. One of the things that we have requested of our legislature is to look at the previous year's enrollment and actually 2 years prior to average out our enrollment, knowing that we are at one district and many districts have lost enrollment to homeschool or other online academies and things like that, which has a significant impact on our overall financial picture. Likewise, we have asked our local legislators to consider some sort of a way to help us with the Title I funding that we receive because of free and reduced lunch numbers being lower than expected. And so again, those are the movements afoot. We're hopeful that the legislature will take up some of those issues sooner than later in the session so that we can recover some of those costs and so on moving forward.
Yeah, and what that equates to, that 150 students essentially, Nikki, equates to about $400,000 of loss in revenue for us, which is really significant. So, yep.
Board members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Amanda, thank you very much. Great report.
Thank you.
Mr. Elstad, any last comments, thoughts on that? Okay, we're going to move on. Item 7 tonight on our agenda, the general information, is the enrollment report. Affords one last opportunity to look around, see if anybody has any questions. Once again, seeing none, we're going to continue to move on. Item 8 tonight, which is items that need no action by the board. It's simply discussion items only. As you appear on my screen, I'm going to go around. Christina, you appear first. Anything for board forum?
Nope, nothing today.
Thank you. Tim, how about you?
Nothing for me.
Eric, you have anything? Eric.
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Lori, how about you?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Nikki?
Yes, actually, I just want to share with the rest of the board that I was fortunate enough to attend a pre-delegate assembly meeting and have seen many of the legislature proposals that are going to go in front of the delegate assembly to hopefully move forward. And the free and reduced lunch and enrollment were two topics that were discussed at length. So again, it's good to hear another perspective. I thank you, Amanda, for sharing that. So again, it kind of, for me, kind of put all the pieces together.
Great. Nikki, thanks. Jolene, anything for you for board forum?
Not tonight.
Okay. Yeah, and the only thing that I would have for all of you is just, by all appearances, we're going to meet virtually again here in the month of December, and we're going to cross our fingers behind our backs that come January, we're back into an in-person format once again. I'm going to turn to Mr. Elstad and open it up for anything that he might have to add with regard to the administrative report.
Yeah, thank you. So I usually at our meetings like this give a COVID update, and it seems like we talk about this at most of our meetings, but it's the topic du jour most every day. I wanted to lift up to you tonight that our county case numbers have continued to rise. At last Thursday's report, we had 89.9 cases per 10,000 residents, which for sure puts us into distance learning with all of our students. I will report to you that this Thursday or Friday, I'm not certain exactly when they'll come out because of the holiday on Thursday, we will in fact at Steele County have 146.1 cases per 10,000. So we are definitely seeing the doubling and almost tripling effect from where we were just 2 weeks ago. And so COVID is certainly here, and we are seeing that not only in the numbers in the county, but also how it impacts our staff and the available staff to teach. I would add to you that because of those numbers last week, I was able to do a regional consult with our representative from the Minnesota Department of Health and inquired about our current plan and whether or not we needed to revise our plan moving forward. The advice that I received from that representative is that the return of our students on December 7th is not likely, in fact, is not likely at all. And so with that, I would like to just make sure I brief the board tonight that tomorrow morning, I will be sending out a communication to our parents that will extend our distance learning period through Friday, January 8th. And this is due to the fact that as we look at the numbers, there's a 2-week delay. And so as we start to look at the numbers, it actually brings us through that number 50 through at least mid-December. And so with the holiday weeks thrown in there, we made the decision as a district to extend that distance learning, which in fact is parallel to a number of districts around the state that have done the same thing. It would be our hope that we would be able to come back to the model we just left with our students. So early childhood through 5th grade would be in a hybrid in-person model, and certainly our secondary would be in a hybrid model starting on Monday, January 11th. And that may need to be extended, but at this point, that was the advice from the Minnesota Department of Health, that again, we extend our distance learning period up through Friday, January 8th. Logistically, what that means is that Thursday, January 7th, then would be the last day of instruction during this distance learning, and Friday, then January 8th would be a transition day so that we could resume our learning models on the 11th. As I mentioned, all of that is subject to change. We know at this point that COVID is in charge, and so we will see how the community mitigates that risk, and hopefully with the measures that have been put in place, we will drop those numbers and get our students back in person, which I've mentioned to you now over several hundred times is when we do our best work, is when our students are with us. It is our hope. In fact, next Monday, I will be joining a new subcommittee that was put together by Commissioner Ricker called this Back to School Safely Plan, which is actually looking at long-term when we might be able to return all of our students in person every day. And so the light at the end of the tunnel, as Commissioner Ricker and Lieutenant Governor Flanagan indicated to me, the light at the end of the tunnel is getting brighter. We just hope to add a few lumens to that so that we can make it even brighter to get our kids back in person sooner than later. So again, just in short, there will be a parent communication going out tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., letting our parents know the plan moving forward with our extended distance learning period. I have alerted all of our largest employers in the community, as well as our Chamber of Commerce, so that they were able to talk with their human resources individuals in those companies to make sure that they were prepared, knowing that this puts an extra burden on parents for this time of distance learning. So at this point, I would entertain any questions that board members might have in regard to that item.
I have a question. So does this, has winter sports been addressed in this?
Yes, thank you, Nikki. Thanks. I had a note to talk about it and I just forgot. So thank you for reminding me. In accordance with Governor Walz's latest executive order regarding the 4-week shutdown of all winter adult and youth activities, we are keeping with that. And so December 18th is the end of that order. We are hopeful that the Minnesota State High School League will weigh in and try to provide some additional guidance for us. It does not mean that we will resume activities on the 19th of December. What it means is that we're on hold until that point, and then we'll make extra decisions or other decisions, excuse me, in regard to that once we get more feedback and data from both the governor's office as well as the Minnesota State High School League. One thing I would add is that we have been asking that we adjust our seasons accordingly so that we don't have to shorten any seasons. What that means is would be adjusting our winter season to go later than they've typically gone. So sometime in late March or early April, and then commence our spring sports, which might go a little further into June than we typically have, but it would allow those student athletes and other activities to perform and do things in a timely manner while not being impacted and having such shortened seasons. So thank you. Other questions? That's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Elstad, thank you. I'm just looking around to see if anybody has any other questions relative to this or anything else that appeared in the administrative report. See any mute buttons being unmuted, so we're going to continue to move on. Item 9 tonight would be the consent agenda. The quick reminder, we are approving minutes from October 26 and November 9 and November 13, the disbursement and personnel reports. Anybody have any reason to believe that we need to pull anything out from the consent agenda? Looking around, I don't see that. Just as we have done in the past with this virtual format, in order just for expediency with the meetings, I will introduce the agenda or the motions tonight. I'll make the motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Eric, would you commence with the roll call, please?
Certainly. Mark,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Jolene,
Aye.
Christina,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Nikki,
Aye.
and I myself and I. 7-0 pass.
Thanks, Eric. That motion carries. We're going to move on. Item 10 tonight, board action being required. The first item here would be the Minnesota State High School League grant. I'm going to turn things back over to Mr. Elstad.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the board, tonight you're seeing the Minnesota State High School League grant, Form A grant. This is something that we have been doing for the last number of years. This is a grant that comes from the State High School League Foundation. And the money that we have received goes specifically to offset any student activity costs for families that might apply for them. In the past, we have also used these grants to do our Superfan Conference, which brings together student leaders from across the conference to help them with sportsmanship and just the way we should be cheering at games and things like that. So again, this is something that you have approved in the past, but this is coming up for your approval or consideration of approval tonight.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Elstad on this? Okay, hearing none, I will move that the board approve the resolution supporting the district's application to the Minnesota State High School League Foundation for a Form A grant to offset student activity fees. I'll turn things over to, oh wait, I'll wait for a second.
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 Do have the second. Now, Eric, if you would please the roll call.
Yep. Mark,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Jolene,
Aye.
Christina,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Nikki,
Aye.
and I myself and I. 7-0 pass.
Motion carries. Thank you. Item B would be regarding the audit that we just heard about for the year ended June 30, 2020. Well, Mr. Elstad, one last opportunity to weigh in or make comment on this.
I didn't get a chance to before because of course the mute button was on, but I wanted Amanda and her staff to know I'm so proud of the work that they've done. We were in a time where we've made budget reductions and cuts. And of course, that's reflected in the audit. But again, to have a clean sweep that really just represents the acumen, financial acumen that we have on our staff, I think is just exemplary. So I want to just make sure that Amanda and her staff knows I'm very proud of the work they've done, and this district and community should be proud of the way that we have been great stewards of their dollars. So thank you, Amanda. And at that, I would turn it over to Amanda if there are any questions in regard to your consideration of approval of the June 30, 2020 audit.
I'm looking around. I do not see any questions. Amanda, I'm going to echo Mr. Elstad's comments. Boy, on behalf of the community, thank you. That's fabulous stewardship of the community funds. So thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
I will then make the motion. I move that the board approve the audit for year ended June 30, 2020 as presented.
Second.
We do have a second. I'll turn things over to Eric.
Mark,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Jolene,
Aye.
Christina,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Nikki,
Aye.
and I myself and I. 7-0 pass.
That motion carries. Thank you. Item C tonight would be a resolution establishing the polling places. I'll turn things back over to Mr. Elstad.
Again, this has become sort of an annual consideration of the board. And so as we look forward to the next year, we have to establish our polling places. And again, for an election such as the year coming up, it is recommended to you that we would consider all of the city polling places, and then again, one combined polling place at Clinton Falls Township, as we have done in prior years.
Board members, any questions with regard to this? Okay. Hearing none, move that the board approve the resolution establishing polling places and designating hours for school district elections not held on the day of a statewide election. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Eric, if you would, please.
Certainly. Mark,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Jolene,
Aye.
Christina,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Nikki,
Aye.
and I myself an aye. 7-0 pass.
That motion carries. Next item on the agenda is a discussion of a level 3 grievance on a personnel matter. An employee of the school district requested a level 3 hearing on an issue involving the assignment of the employee. Pursuant to the terms of an applicable employment agreement, the hearing on the grievance was deferred to a committee of the school board. I understand that the hearing before the committee was held and that the committee is now bringing before the school board its findings and recommendation. At this time, I will turn things over to Lori, the chair of the committee, to address the school board as to the committee's findings and recommendations for consideration.
Thank you. Fellow board members, so information has been provided to you that outlines the subject of the grievance as well as the proceedings that have occurred. As these documents note, this is a grievance brought by an educational assistant relative to her assignment for the 2020-2021 school year. And the dispute is whether the employee should be provided with duties that would allow her to perform her job remotely at home. The grievance had proceeded through levels 1 and 2. The committee then met on November 4th to hear the level 3 grievance. At that time, the grievance was present via a remote access or a remote proceeding. And she was provided an opportunity to present her position as to why the grievance should be granted. Superintendent Elstead submitted to us a written statement as to why he denied the grievance at the level 2 hearing. The committee considered both sides, as well as all the documents and proceedings to date, all of which were included for you in your packet. There were no new issues or information raised by the grievant at the level 3 hearing on November 4th. After hearing the submissions, reviewing the information submitted, the committee determined that the points raised by the grievant do not justify granting the grievance, and that the decision of the superintendent at the level 2 hearing was correct in all respects. The committee therefore recommends denial of the grievance. On behalf of the committee, I'm providing to you a recommended decision for consideration and adoption by the school board to send to the grievant that incorporates the reasons for our recommendations to deny. If the school board wishes to adopt this response, a resolution has been drafted for this purpose.
Board members, you have now heard the recommendation of the committee. Going to turn to Tim and ask for Tim to present the motion.
I move that the board approve the resolution as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Turning things over to Eric for the roll call vote.
Mark,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Jolene,
Aye.
Christina,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Nikki,
Aye.
and I myself said 7-0 or an aye, so 7-0 pass.
That motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item E, gifts to the district. Last time tonight, I will turn things back over to Mr. Elstad.
Thank you, members of the board. Tonight we have a few gifts that have coming to us. One of them I wanted to just call your attention to. We received a large gift from the McKinley PTO, which was an addition to other gifts that have been provided for the outdoor classroom that is now at McKinley Elementary. And it is my hope that as the weather warms, that we will have one of our meetings this spring at McKinley Elementary so that all of you can see the new outdoor classroom and the things that have been added there certainly that as we start to reflect some of the STEAM sort of teaching and STEM now with the arts STEAM, that it certainly provides another very unique experience for our students. And if you recall, about a little over a year ago, we all traveled to the middle school where Dr. Maher presented the Outdoor Learning Center at the Owatonna Middle School. And certainly with the advent of our new high school, we will be adding to those outdoor learning spaces again, so that all of our students have those unique experiences. So again, my thank you to the McKinley PTO for that generous donation, and certainly some other donations. I want to thank Mankey Implement Equipment for giving us lawnmowers that were given to them that don't work for our small engines classes. What a great thing for our students to have, and just a great business partnership. And of course, then we received another $500 gift for our adaptive floor hockey team. So again, very giving community, and not all those gifts have to come in the form of money. Sometimes it's just in services or opportunities for our students. So that is my report on the gifts of the district tonight.
Mr. Elstead, thank you. Board members, any questions? Comments with regard to gifts? Okay, hearing none. I move that the board approve the resolution for acceptance of gifts as presented. One last time, Eric.
I second it. And Mark?
Thank you for making the second.
Yep.
Yeah, aye from me.
Laurie?
Aye.
Jolene?
Aye.
Christina?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Nikki?
Aye.
I did catch you, right, Jolene? Okay, and I
Yes.
myself and I, so 7-0 pass.
That motion carries. Thank you, folks. With that, I will make the motion that we adjourn our meeting tonight.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Eric, last time. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Eric, you're muted. I'm not sure when you're calling on me.
Whoops, Tim?
Aye.
Nikki?
Aye.
And I myself is an aye. Should I go back and re-hit the ones prior, just to be safe, so it's on record? Mark? Aye. Lori?
Aye.
Jolene?
Aye.
And Christina?
Aye.
And once again, 7-0 pass.
Motion carries, and further evidence that we do better when we're together.
Do.
Folks, have a good night. Good meeting. Thank you all very much.
Good night.